I am Alex. I have a wonderful French name that no one ever uses except my mother when she's angry. So if you want to ask me a question, just Alex is fine. And I am a super fan of Copilot. Like I told him right before, I am an expert on it because I've been using it more than everybody else, but I like to think of myself as more of a student of it because I just love learning about it even more. So if there's anything in there in the presentation that you see, oh, I've heard something else or I know something else about it, please do share because I'm always wanting to learn more on it. Because I do believe that artificial intelligence is all it's cracked up to be. It is a lot like any new technology. I watched a video recently. It was a speech from Steve Jobs when he was talking about the iPhone and how they were struggling to get people to adopt it. Because if any of you remember that first year of the iPhone being out, it wasn't a home run. It wasn't like everyone wanted to have it and all that. It was more of a party trick. So what he was talking about is that whenever there's a new medium, a new way to work, a new way to communicate, people tend to fall back on their old habits first. So what he was saying is that in the early days of television, the first television shows for the first 20 years was cameras pointed at radio hosts, because that's what they were familiar with. So when people start using artificial intelligence, a lot of the time they'll use it like a search engine, because we're used to asking questions to Google, finding the right keywords, trying to make it as concise as possible, and then from the results, we go from there. This is new, this is different. You'll want to try it out, you'll want to experiment. No one was ever born being able to drive stick shift. Like, you have to learn, there's a learning curve, there's some things that you'll have to experience yourself with that same example of the car. If you've ever driven stick shift on a hill and you're waiting at a light and there's a car behind you, like, how do you explain that to someone? You know, oh, you're gonna need to wait till you feel. No, it doesn't work. You have to experience it for yourself. And the same is true for Copilot. Everything I'm gonna show you is gonna be kind of like watching someone watching TV. Not that super interesting, but if you give it a shot for yourself, you will have that aha moment of like, wow, I am saving so much time doing this. Or wow, I would have never attempted this on my own. This is great. So hopefully what you'll get from this event is definitely to try it out, try to see how it fits with your different work obligations, and hopefully it'll change your life like it has mine. Like, my whole work day is completely different than what it used to be before Copilot. So before I run out of things to say on that first slide, the agenda. So which one is Microsoft 365 Copilot? This is important because Microsoft, since the beginning of the year, has started to rename everything Copilot. To be fair, it is a bit like a car, right? So saying that you have Copilot is like saying that you have a car. So the next question is, but what kind of car? So in our case, so what kind of Copilot? So the Copilot I'm going to be talking about today is the M365 Copilot. This is the paid version that is for businesses and enterprises. Right now, it only comes as an annual commitment add-on. You need to have a base license for it. And I'll try to dispel, some of the other ones that are out there. So Microsoft tried to make a nice little graph to kind of show you where the different Copilots fit in your life. So the middle one at the top, Copilot for Productivity, M365 Copilot, is the one we're talking about today. But there are other cars, other vehicles, heavy machinery that people can use artificial intelligence in, and the Microsoft flavor always has that word Copilot to go with it. So if you have any type of Microsoft application, even on the Dynamics 365 side, you will see some sort of Copilot add-on coming soon. On the main Copilot side, it is still confusing because there's 4 different versions of Copilot. So the one I'm talking about today is the last one on the right. So Copilot for Microsoft 365. So as you can see, it is the only one that has all the little check marks of what it can do. So the first one on the left, Copilot little asterisk, is Bing Chat. So if you go to bing.com and you select the option to chat, you will have access to what's called Copilot. It is a bit of a clone of ChatGPT, so if you've ever used ChatGPT, you will have the same type of user experience. The main difference with the free version of ChatGPT versus the free version of Copilot is the commercial data protection, which means that none of the information that you put in your prompts will be used, will be retained, they'll use it to train the model or anything like that. Like none of that will be done. So you will be, your privacy will be respected with that. The one that's on the second one is the one that causes the most confusion because it's called Copilot Pro. And in normal human language, Pro is short for professional, so you're thinking business. But Copilot Pro is actually for individuals. So if you find something on some link on the web, oh, we'll give you Copilot, it's only $20 US a month, no annual commitment or something like that. It works with Microsoft 365. Be careful because it's not the one that you're looking for. It is true that Copilot Pro works with Microsoft 365, but home and family, not business or enterprise. So if you have, maybe if you're a very small SMB and you're using M365 Home or Family, Copilot Pro could help you. But if you have anything with Business Basic, Business Standard, Business Premium, or the enterprise type licenses from Microsoft, that Copilot Pro will not interact with it. So again, if you're a freelancer, it's a great solution. Copilot Pro is really the one-for-one, apples to apples with ChatGPT Pro. I think it's called Plus now or something like that. And it gives you, GPT-4 Turbo, priority access, all the tokens and everything. Then on the third column, it is also called Copilot. It is still Bing Chat Enterprise. But this one is what comes by having a Microsoft account. So as long as you have a Microsoft account, if you go to the bing.com webpage, you will see in the upper right an option to sign in. Whenever you sign, you're going to sign with your work account or school account. And then you will have a nice little check mark with a shield that says your data is now protected. It is still the same ChatGPT type clone with, varying levels of success of how you interact with it. And I would say if you want to use that one, you probably will get better results if you use it late at night or early in the morning. Because it is like the internet of the 1990s. You can't get anything done during work hours. It's just traffic is too much of work. So now finally, Copilot for Microsoft 365. This is the one that ends up being $30 US a month. Only available as an annual subscription right now, so $360 US upfront, almost 500 Canadian. Couple of things about it. You can match your Copilot licensing with the subscription of your base plan that you have right now. So let's say in your organization, you're 20 users, your renewal is in August of every year. Well, if you were to add one license of Copilot today, you would not be charged for the whole year. You would be charged from now until your renewal in August. So this is one first thing to kind of note that upfront investment could be significantly less depending on when your actual renewal date is. And then the other thing is that this license can be reassigned to a different user. Because a lot of people, this is brand new, they don't want to spend thousands of dollars right away, they want to try it out. They have a few champions internally that kind of line up to be the ones to use it. So you can have one license for one user 1 week, switch it to another user the next week, so that a few people get to try it out and to see which users are the most party. Yes.
On the opposite end, is there any plan to attach it to E3, E5 licenses that requires a lot of licensing?
For Copilot for Microsoft 365, yes, it does require a base license. It used to be very restrictive. Initially, when I first started, it was E3 or E5 only. And then in January, they started to expand on the business type of licenses. And then a month ago, they pretty much added all the remainder of the base licenses, except for a couple. So if you have Exchange Online Kiosk, Exchange Online Plan 1, or Exchange Online Plan 2, it doesn't work. but any plan that you have that includes Teams will be ready for Copilot.
Thanks.
And because the gentleman had a great question, another point for that, there is no minimum requirement. Initially when it came out, there was a 300 minimum user purchase. That is no longer true. So you could have 200 users in your company, but only 5 people with Copilot, and that's perfectly fine. The only caveat I will say with using, just having like 2-3 users on a large corporation to have a Copilot is the way the backend works. Whenever you assign a service to a user, it comes with a certain level of horsepower. And Copilot, initially, whenever it's added to your tenant, there is a phase called indexing, which you may have heard of, which is when Copilot is trying to get some points of references in your tenants, because it does talk to everything on your Microsoft environment, your Microsoft stack. And this, the last point on this slide, the enterprise grade data protection, that's actually what that means, which is any policy that you have, security, compliance, data loss prevention, sensitivity labels and all that will be respected by Copilot. So a user will not be able to exfiltrate tons of data from your company that they wouldn't have been able to do before. So if you haven't put those policies in place, do consider that. We'll look at those very shortly. But it will not break anything in your tenant by adding Copilot. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 also has options to customize, a little bit like the GPTs, the chatbots, and the things like that, but it's not part of the base license. For that, you actually need Copilot Studio, which is a different service that's added once on the tenant, and then people who have who are designated with like the permission to access that section will be able to create those chatbots, those agents, and then everyone else on the tenant will be able to interact with those chatbots. So if you were looking to get Copilot from Microsoft 365 to get those chatbots going, you will need Copilot Studio on top of it to make that happen. Other than that, great question. So far, so good? Okay. If you can tell, I'm a little under the weather still, so I don't know.
Yes, sir. Question on the Copilot Studio. Is it you can customize, I guess, what information gets fed into?
Absolutely. So
you can
one
kind of restrict, I guess, if you in a way, right?
Exactly. So what you could do, you could say, hey, in my company, I'm going to have a Copilot Studio, and we're going to have 4 chatbots. One's going to be sales, one's going to be marketing, one's going to be HR, and one's going to be support. So any user within our company that have questions related to one of those topics, we'll ask it to that chatbot. So when you ask the HR chatbot, how many weeks of vacation do I get this year? The person who created that chatbot said, only look for the employee vacation guide from 2023-2024. So it is a great way to make sure that you have always up-to-date information for internal communications. Because if you don't have that, and you haven't had a good hygiene of your data, and you just ask about how many weeks of vacation am I going to get this year, it may find a document from 2017 and say, oh, you only have a week and a half, and you have to be in the office every day, all day. So you want to kind of get those things going, but those chatbots are great to kind of limit the scope of what it can search in, and for different people, like in sales or in marketing or in things like that, the feedback is amazing. Great question though. No? So for Copilot for M365, these are the main applications that it works with. The first one in the upper left, yep, Microsoft 365 Chat would be your main hub as to where you start working with. If you want Copilot to have access to 3 different Word documents, plus an email, plus a meeting summary, and give you some insights on all of that together, you will do it from M365 Chat. It really is that same interface with the prompt, the conversations. You have options to link files, to link people, and things like that from it. So if you have Copilot for Microsoft 365, go look for the Microsoft 365 chat app. It is on the left navigation pane when you go to portaloffice.com, where you see like Word, Outlook, and all of that. And it's also a user in Teams. If you prefer to work from Teams, you can access M365 chat from Teams. It's exactly the same experience. Speaking of Teams, Copilot in Teams, I will say, so far has been the kind of breakout app with Copilot. I see some knowledge, probably some people that have it already, that have started to use it.
Transcribing.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
Before Copilot, I used to have a brain during meetings. I used to have to remember what people were asking, write down some notes, action items, things that we need to do after. Since Copilot, I no longer need a brain for those meetings. It's absolutely awesome. Sometimes you can miss those meetings, and as long as Copilot is running, you can get a summary of that. So I ever wish the meeting could have been an email, which will come true with this. And the great thing about it is that you can actually ask it questions from that meeting. And it's not just questions like, oh, did Alex talk during the meeting? It's like, how much did Alex talk compared to the other people in the meeting? What was the tone of the meeting? What were the questions that were not answered on the meeting? Did it seem like anyone was frustrated? And you will be incredibly impressed with how accurate those responses are. My favorite thing to do is to ask it, did anyone make a joke during the meeting? Because that's what I tend to do, as you probably have noticed. And it will find my jokes, and it will tell me why my jokes are funny. That, I've copy pasted one and showed it to my wife. I'm like, thinks I'm funny. So it really is good, really good insights. Do ask it a lot of things. Don't just stick to the main, because whenever you use Copilot in Teams, you'll have the suggested prompts like recap the meetings, list action items, and things like that. But go further, and sometimes don't even wait until the end of the meeting. You could, during the meeting, what kind of questions should we be asking right now? Give me a list of suggested questions. So maybe you're in a new role, or like a newly promoted as a supervisor, and you have your first one-on-one with your direct report, and you don't know how these things should go. Well, you can ask Copilot. You can lean on it for a lot of that stuff. Oh, yes, sir.
Just a quick question. If you're having a meeting, there's 10 people in it, do they all have to have Copilot to make that work, or do you just you need to have it?
No, but that's a great question. So no, only the meeting hosts will be required to have a Copilot for everyone to kind of have a bit of that experience. However, as I mentioned before, it does respect all of the policies that your company has. So for example, within my company, we have very strict data loss prevention policies. I can't share a file in a Teams meeting with an external user. The transcript that comes with Copilot is saved on the user's OneDrive. So because those policies come into play, anyone that has Copilot that comes to my meeting will get the message that no, you don't have access to the meeting notes or anything like that. Yes?
Why is it a requirement that to use Copilot in Teams we have to record the meeting?
It was a requirement, but it is now optional. So that is something that has changed fairly recently based on the user feedback. The only thing is that if there is no recording and transcription during the meeting, after the meeting, you won't be able to use Copilot for it. But during the meeting, even if recording and transcriptions aren't on, you are now able to kind of quiz Copilot, ask for follow-up questions and things like that. But, oh, yes, yes.
Sorry, hopefully I'm not derailing, but does Copilot for Teams have a CAM solution to augment service desk?
Not that I know of, but because Copilot Studio is fairly recent, you will want to keep a close eye on the Azure Marketplace. And if there isn't one already, there will be something a lot like the GPTs from the ChatGPT that you can purchase in the shop for. So there will be, so I would say long before summer, you should have your choice of that type of application available. But I would still say, because you knew all the words specifically, you may want to look at Copilot Studio to see if you can do it yourself in-house. because it really is Copilot Studio like a rebranding of Power Virtual Agents, which has that philosophy of like low code, no code type approach. So it's a lot of drag and drop, copy and paste. So with just a little technical background, you should be very comfortable setting up those chatbots, those agents, and those different workflows.
Thanks.
After Copilot in Teams, there is Copilot in Outlook. So for that one, you can ask it to summarize different emails, to compose emails for you. You can have it, kind of redo the email in your own voice, in your own style. But I would say for most emails right now today, it's more if you're trying to learn to use Copilot that you would use Reply with Copilot, because it sometimes is longer to click Reply with Copilot than to just reply. But if you live in a world like me, where sometimes you'll get an email and then it starts with the title of the email, FW, FW, and then you notice that it's 77 different replies, and the only text that's to you is thoughts. Well, Summarize with Copilot is absolutely amazing, because it will find the relevant parts of all those replies. You know, people reply, they add the text, sometimes they remove the text, they're like, oh, did I read this, did I not read this? So on that alone, that feature alone in Outlook is awesome. If you ever get forwards and people ask you for things, yes sir.
How far will it nest? Like, if a forward has an attachment, it'll read that one. If that attachment has an attachment, it won't read that one.
As long as it has permissions to read that, but most of the time, no. I would say, like the attachment of the attachment, that's,
So like one level.
yeah, one level will be very easy to do. And one tip, I guess, I could give you with this, and I'll come back to it later as well, is whenever you're trying to do something that's related to certain emails or certain messages, your first prompt should be just that. Like, I want you to familiarize yourself with these emails and that document. Let me know, when you're ready to move on. Because once you have that first kind of very precise, narrow context for Copilot, your following prompts will have much superior results than if you try to cram all of that into one prompt. Sorry, the anti-congestion thing. After that, Copilot in Word. For that one, I rarely use it directly in Word. I usually use Microsoft 365 Chat, and then I ask it to compose something for me, like a blog post or anything like that. But in Word, I did find some uses, especially when it's like not an email, but it's a very long document on Microsoft licensing or anything like that. Copy paste it in Word, ask it to summarize it for you, ask questions about it. Sometimes if you have very long documents and you're looking for a specific section, I used to use Control F, and then I type a keyword, and then it would have 98 results, and then you just go next until you find potentially the right one. With Copilot, you ask a question, it finds the context, it finds the place for you. And one, I guess, like superior thing that Copilot has versus other applications is that because it is native to your Microsoft stack, it will always have links. So if it's saying that, oh, it's because Johnny mentioned this in a meeting the other day, you'll have a little one or two like blue link after that, and you can click on it and go to that conversation to actually verify that source, because we've all heard of the AI hallucinating or being confidently wrong on certain things, right? So it's very good with Copilot that you always have that trust but verify option to kind of make sure it goes. And it's also, but again, just because I like this stuff a lot, it's also fun whenever it gets something wrong, because you can kind of see the logic, like, yeah, how it got to that, how it kind of strayed off the path but still reinforced it and ended up in Miami instead of New York. But and then from there you can kind of rephrase your prompt and then kind of get better results from that.
Just a quick question, but it's maybe a small nuance, but you said copy paste, you tell it to copy paste into Word, or you copy paste it?
I copy paste it into Word when it's like from PDF or other documents that it can't read natively yet, but probably before the end of the year, I won't need to do that anymore. Lots and lots of quality of life upgrade. think Teams early in the pandemic, how much of a struggle it was, how most of your meetings started with, can you see me, can you hear me? It got better, it keeps getting better, and now it's a lot like, for me, it's like having a GPS in my car. If I don't have a GPS in my car, I can't go anywhere. It's nowhere anywhere else. One other thing that's good for Copilot in Word is potentially maybe more like locally us here in Quebec, but when it comes to translation. Sometimes you will have a nice email from someone, you think you understand it, but it's not your first language, you just want to confirm, ask Copilot to translate it for you in French, Spanish, Italian, etc. It's got 19 languages that it's fluent in. And same thing vice versa. If you're more comfortable in a different language, but you need to have it sent to a customer in English, well, write it in your own language, ask Copilot to translate it for you, and then you saved a whole bunch of money on translating services, and you know for sure that this is a professional sounding email, or however you want it to sound. Then after that, we get, and there's a reason I put them in that order, because we do get in the less mature services that come with Copilot. So Copilot for PowerPoint, right now, I would say it's a great tool to help you learn how to use PowerPoint. It will give you guidance on how to add things, how to modify things, where to find those designs and those transitions between the slides. It's also a great way to kind of get that outline going for your PowerPoint. So you can say, oh, from this meeting summary that I had with a customer, I need to create a 10-slide presentation for it. It will create a 10-slide presentation for it, but it's going to be, like 6th, 7th grade level. It's not going to be super professional, but you will have that outline, you will have those speaker notes. It will save you hours of time to get that PowerPoint almost ready to go. And eventually, it should be within this year, it will have the DAL-E3 image generator. Yes, it will be built in. Right now, it's still using the designer, like the stock images from Microsoft. So if you ask for a dog with a balloon, if it has one, it'll show you one. If not, it'll give you a cat with a balloon. But with DAL-E3, the image generator, it will give you brand new, copyright-free type of images related to your presentation. So that is coming. Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that it's fluent in 19 languages. What about when we do like in Quebec, we speak a lot of Anglais sometimes during meetings?
Yes.
Can it still keep up?
It learns. It actually learns from your interactions. So the longer you use it in that context, and I live that context every day, the better it gets at it. So much so that I can have a conversation in French with a partner and use lots and lots of English acronyms for, like CSP, Microsoft, and things like that. And in the summary from Copilot, it will have the right acronyms to go with it. But the first time you do that, you will have probably some funny type results. If you want to have a really, really fun time, set the meeting to French, have the meeting in English, and see what Copilot thinks. It's going to try to phonetically figure out what you were saying, and it's hilarious. After that, Copilot in Excel, if any of you have ever tried it, you were probably disappointed. And some of you may have noticed that right next to the Copilot in Excel button, there's a preview in parentheses. It's because it's not out yet. It's not mature yet. Last window, June, is when it's supposed to be officially released, Copilot in Excel, where it should live up to which we've seen in the demo videos and those little tutorials from Microsoft. So I have seen some progress with it. I have been able to get some charts going, to have it like resize the columns and rows, change the font and things like that. But when I ask it to create a new column with the sum, it tells me the formula and all that, but it's just zeros. It's still not there yet, but it will get there. Copilot in OneNote is also a great way to get like summaries and things like that. I know a lot of people use OneNote. There's like two camps, right? Like people who use OneNote for everything and people who never use OneNote. So if you're a person that uses OneNote for everything, you will love to be able to create PowerPoint presentations, blog posts, articles, proposals, requests for information, things like that from the notes that you've taken from a meeting. Copilot in Loop, that's very, very new. This is a service from Microsoft that allows you within a Teams conversation, an email thread, a PowerPoint presentation, to give tasks to different people. So it makes it easier to kind of have different people collaborate on the same project. And Copilot in that sense will help, you know, with the brainstorming, with the signing tasks, different people suggesting things for that. And Copilot in Whiteboard, if you ever use the Whiteboard option, it's okay, but I'm not a huge fan of Whiteboard myself, so I'm not gonna say too much. Yes, sir.
Going back to Loop, does Microsoft have a roadmap of what they're doing with tasks? We've got Outlook tasks, we've got Planner, like the project is gonna die and become Planner Pro or something like. I don't know what boat to jump on.
It's a very fair question. I would say that right now it's a tug of war. Unfortunately, there's no clear winner, but there will be one. Like Highlander, there can only be one, and I would think that it's going to be the Planner Pro, Plan 1, Plan 3, Plan 5 type route, but not for several more months. It is because Loop is so brand new that not a lot of adoption, not a lot of people are using it. So they're kind of giving it time to see if there is some traction. So if there will be, then it's probably going to stay in Loop. If there isn't, it's going to be scrapped and moved to Plan.
Actually transition from one to,
Oh yeah.
to be able to collaborate that way.
And does it live up to its promise?
I'm fine with it.
Oh, good.
Question for teams.
Yes.
When you said you can have a brainless meeting.
Yes.
So does it work the same way as when you're recording a session where it'll upload the file to your OneDrive, right, like you said?
Yep.
Okay, so let's say you intended to disable OneDrive access in SharePoint for security reasons. Can you still take advantage of the feature or?
No.
No?
And then that is and we'll see that in the employee considerations. That when you go through the deployment, it goes through the different requirements. Such like, I think it was in this area before they were asking, like, you know, do you have to turn recording on for that? So it shows you where you can allow users to turn on recordings and things like that. So if you don't have that enabled by default, then you're missing out on a lot of the features. But yes, if you're not using OneDrive and if you're not using Teams, probably not a good idea to get Copilot right now. There was another question. Yes, sir?
Do you foresee them absorbing, like Outlook going away and being kind of embedded into Teams or embedded into SharePoint? You know, like,
They've
you're in
tried.
Teams, I live in Teams a lot,
Mm-hmm.
chat, files, and I branch to SharePoint. And it's like, the only thing missing is Outlook. Like,
Yeah.
do you think they're gonna absorb it?
If it was just up to Microsoft, they would definitely do that. They would have done it a long time ago. But unfortunately, I don't know if you've been following the news and all that, but there's a lot of antitrust type of regulations going around. As of April 1st, Teams is no longer bundled in the Office 365 and M365 suite because of the Euro laws. So now they're doing it for everyone. So it's gonna be a hard a hard sell because they could get in a lot of trouble. One thing that is coming though, and it's already in the videos, where let's say you're in M365 chat and you're saying, oh, create a nice email, sound like a marketer, refer this website and this email that I've gotten. At the end of that, instead of just having a copy button, you're gonna have a copy to Outlook button, so that it will actually be an email once you click that button instead of having to copy, open Outlook and paste on it. So there will be some streamlining of it, but I foresee that because of laws, they're gonna have to keep it officially separate. Great question. So for deployment considerations, and these are active links, so you will have access to that after the presentation, you know, from progress and all that. Whenever you're getting ready for Copilot, there are kind of two distinct tracks that you have to consider. You have the user aspect of it, and then you have the technical aspect of it. So on the technical side, it's about taking the optimization assessment to kind of see, do you have DLP policy? Do you have sensitivity labels? Do you have ways to protect your data from bad actors, both internal and external? Then afterwards, the setup guide where they tell you to turn on OneDrive and to make sure that recordings are available in the SharePoint and Teams, how to make sure that the cloud save is available for the different applications. Just say in Excel, if you want to work with a file with Copilot, it has to be saved on the cloud, otherwise it will grayed out the Copilot icon. So all these things are covered in that type of deployment guide. And then you have also the Copilot dashboard, which is very important for business leaders because it tells you what people are doing with Copilot. So you can kind of watch that investment. You see that if you've given it to someone and say, oh, I use it and it's great, and then you go in those reports and say, yeah, you used it for Teams twice, but nothing else. You know, it's a great way to say, okay, let's coach you on how to use more of it because again, it is a change. You have to change your day. For example, like my day used to be meeting break, so that I would have time to send emails, look up some guys, answer some questions, things like that. Now it can be meeting, and then at the end of the day, I have an hour block, and then I go recap, list action items, and then I'm able to do one extra meeting and feel less tired at the end of the day than I used to before Copilot. For the upper track, as you can see, there are things to do for end users as well. There's the scenario library, because a lot of people, again, this is brand new, you don't know how to use it. So in the scenario library, you'll see different roles. Like, are you in HR? Are you in sales? Are you in marketing? Are you in support? Well, here's some of the prompts that people have been using before. So kind of like training wheels to get you started. You also have the Copilot Lab, where it's like a community type thing, where people share their favorite prompts. And nowadays, the popular thing is to show the prompt stacking, and so okay, here's the first prompt, here's the second, here's the third, try this in your environment. And then you also are able to give certain users access to the Copilot dashboard to kind of see how people are using it, and to send out surveys, so that people can give you their anonymous opinion if it's actually worth it, or if it's like NFTs or something like that. Here's a quick screenshot of what the Copilot assessment looks like. So again, it'll give you a lot of answers about your environment, what you need to do. So if you have a more like autonomous, like technical IT team internally, not necessarily like that they're like super IT, but like they know a little bit on how this works. This can usually get them to be confident to deploy it, or to be confident to say, oh, we're not ready to deploy it. As I mentioned before, another screenshot, whenever you actually deploy it, it goes through a little progress, okay, have you done this, have you done that? Here's the links, here's where you need to change that. So it really kind of holds you by the hand to make sure that the settings and everything are set up. Because otherwise, the deployment, it really is just like adding an add-on, assigning it to the user, and then you're good to go. It's just like buying an app on the App Store. Here's some screenshots of what the usage reports will look like. So you'll see it, by workloads, which users have been using it for Teams, for Outlook and Word. So sometimes you can kind of plan, okay, nobody's using it for PowerPoint, so let's all have a little session on how to use Copilot for PowerPoint. They do recommend, I know it's a little bit tacky, like the Center for Excellence thing, but it actually works. Because we did that internally at ShareWeb, a bunch of jaded, cynical people like myself, but we created a group chat, we called it the Center for Excellence, and after a couple of weeks, like of people saying, oh, look, I did this prompt and I got this result. It's like, oh, wow, I haven't been using it. And people start to share, and it does create that excitement, like, oh, I'm gonna try this in the next time I have that issue come up. So do consider that, especially if you've done it for other types of trainings. That actually does work very well. And for the training, there's lots and lots of options available, either from Microsoft Learn for end users, the Viva Learning aspect of it, which is again like tells you the whole philosophy behind LLMs and ChatGPT and all of that, and things for technical people as well. So I've been going fast because I'm noticing that I'm kind of almost out of time. I did it again. Is it so far so good? Anything on what I've covered so far that wasn't answered? I love the questions, by the way. Okay, good. So when it comes to prompting, and I will say that this is obviously not limited to Copilot, but it really is about AI in general. As I mentioned at the beginning, people follow their old habits of like, kind of asking Copilot the same thing you would ask Google on a Google search, or tell me a funny joke, or how do I make a recipe for this, and that. But it is so much more than that. And going through these things, first understanding, the action words that you can ask it about. So learn, edit, transform, summarize, create, catch up. Those are very important keywords that will become part of your regular, day-to-day prompting. And here, this one I like a lot because it really kind of reminded me of like second grade when you were learning how to write a proper sentence. And we were talking about you need to have subject, verb, and the object. French is even more complicated. It's the same thing with prompts. And most of the time, whenever I see, because I'm on the subreddit as well for Copilot, when I see people say, oh, Copilot sucks, it's not doing this, and that, most of the time, I mean, pretty much all the time, it's the prompt. That's the issue. It's not the technology itself. So if you train yourself initially when you have Copilot, and you can use the Bing chat for free again, just to get yourself used to that technology, have that goal, context, source, expectations. Whenever you have those, you have a very, very good result of the prompt, of what you want. Whenever you have a bad result, look at your prompt, see which one was missing from that. So it's very important to practice this again whenever I got behind like that. Like my friend in high school never laughed so hard than when I was learning to drive manual. I was just horrible. It was just not happening. I wanted to give up. And I was in South Florida. There were no hills. I was just stalling in the middle of the street for no reason. But got through it, and now it's second nature. I can drive stick shift no problem, even the European cars. So it's going to be the same thing for you. You'll struggle at first. You'll find it pointless at first, but you will get to that moment where you're like, oh, I can use this to save time, on these tasks. I can use this to save time on this tasks that were assigned to me and I didn't want them. Because whenever they talk about Copilot saving you time, it is time on things that you didn't like to do. So it's not the dessert that they're taking away. It's the mushrooms, the broccoli, whatever food you don't like. That's what Copilot is going to take care of for you. So if you want to think of a use case for Copilot for you, think about what sucks about your job. Just what is it about your job that you wait until the end of the day, the end of the month, the one day past the deadline, I'll do this on the weekend. Like those tasks tend to be very linear tasks, and Copilot excels at those because it's repetitive, it's long, Microsoft uses the word drudgery, so that's the biggest impact it will have initially on the things that you're doing already. And then the second part, and I'm pretty much gonna leave you on those. Yes, this one. Well, for this one, that's very important, which is the contrary to what initially Microsoft said. There's even some videos that talk about don't worry about punctuation and grammar. Give it a brain dump; it will figure it out. Well, Microsoft noticed that no, it doesn't. It is actually better to communicate clearly, to use punctuation, grammar, and capitalization, but it's because we're in a work context. A lot like we were talking about earlier, how they get confidently wrong. Whenever you use polite language in your prompt, you're kind of setting up the canvas with colors that are going to be polite and professional in their responses. So if you want Copilot to be very professional, be professional in your prompt, it sets that context for it. Otherwise, to new chat or new topics is also very important because otherwise it stays in the other conversation. And then this one here has top 10 tries for it, and then one for a day in the life of an account manager, just to give you an idea of how that works. But my main point, and I've been trying to get that across, and I don't know how I'll do, but here it goes. When people first got cars, or again, like when I talk about like the television and all that, they always repeated the things that were already available. And whenever people start using Copilot, it saves them time on things that they were already doing. Now they don't have to do, Copilot does it for them. But even though, maybe, like, if I walk from Sherbrooke to Montreal, it's gonna take me a day. If I drive from Sherbrooke to Montreal, it takes me an hour and a half. I saved a lot of time. But there's another thing that the car can do. It can bring a lot more stuff with me than I would be able to carry on my walk from Sherbrooke to Montreal. I would have never attempted to carry 700 pounds of stuff with me on my walk from Sherbrooke to Montreal. But now I can with the car. So in your day-to-day life, what tasks, what projects, what ideas that you've had that you would have never attempted because you didn't have all the time in the world, all the resources, or anything to attempt that. Like, you could have, let's say you're a real estate agent and you've always wondered, you know, what is my ideal client profile? You know, what makes it, is there something that I say that I do is like, I wear a specific shirt? Like, what is it that makes it, these customers, you know, want me, these other customers don't want me, and you have 10 years of emails from your different, you can ask Copilot to give you some insights, to create an ideal client profile based on those 10 years of emails. Technically, you could have done it yourself, you know, in a room with lots and lots of time, lots of coffee. It would have taken you probably a few years, but now you can actually get that done very, very fast with Copilot. So things like that, whenever, especially like if you're talking like on the water cooler, or if you're a smoker and you're on a smoke break, and if you're complaining about, you know, certain things, the way the job works, if I were in charge, I would be able to do it like this or like that. That's the next step, to figure out, and the people that figure this out, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna lead that new revolution that we're gonna now try to catch up to what they're doing, just like when the iPhone finally did become popular, and then BlackBerry, you know, became a thing of the past because it was the new generation of like, oh, keyboardless apps and things like that. So this is coming for sure. Whether it's going to be from Copilot or from Gemini or from Olympus or from Mistral, okay, yeah, we don't know yet, but the future is AI, so start using it. And thank you, sorry I ran out of time, but you had a lot of questions during.